had a good relationship.
I think so.
He was a good judge.
Well, good.
And the other one I liked was just because of my old
Okay.
business stuff was general.
All right. We're going to call the meeting of the Swartz Creek School Board to order. And before we begin tonight, I'd like to ask Jack Sayer if he could say a few words.
Yeah, so hello, especially to everyone at home here. It's great to be here tonight. The words I'm about to say are, I'm saying with pain and sadness, frankly. Recently, our community lost one of its giants, Mr. Gentry Farmer. And to those who knew Gentry, you probably know the hurt that a lot of people are feeling right now. Gentry was not just a councilman for our city. He was more than that. He was a giant man with a giant heart. And you talk about a good person, you know, you looked up the phrase, great person. Well, Gentry's picture's right there. Just a kind soul with more love to give than most people could ever imagine. And his loss cannot be understated. I was proud to be Gentry's friend, and frankly, I'm on this board because of him. He's the one that convinced me to actually run. So to his family and to the rest of the friends of Gentry, we're very sorry for your loss. And hopefully in the future we can do something to honor him and hopefully keep his memory around, because such a great person cannot be forgotten. Thank you.
Could I ask you all to join me in a moment of silence on Gentry's behalf? Thank you, and thanks, Jack. Appreciate that. I do believe that Camp Cope Neconic is taking donations to plant apple trees in his honor. Is that correct? So if anybody's interested, you can donate to that cause. So with that, I will ask Jack if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. We have a couple guests here tonight. Anxious to hear from them. I am also going to offer the opportunity to the public for public comment. If you'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And unless our two guests are going to speak, okay, we'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Support.
Mike and Brian, any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Meinke, I'm sure you have a long list for your report.
We have a lot of things happening in the district right now. The spring is a very busy time. I'd like to start by addressing and just kind of thanking our seniors for a tremendous year. Our seniors are finishing up their last day of class on Friday. They have a couple days of school left, and it's going to be sad to see them go. And they've been through a lot. So I'm excited that they're going to have the opportunity to move into the next chapter of their lives. But they also had the opportunity that we, thankfully, with the high school working alongside the health department and the senior class, they are going to get a senior prom and a senior party that is being planned and is scheduled to run. And it's going to be it's just for the senior class, but I'm glad that they're going to get an experience that was concerned that they may not get. Furthermore, graduation will be here at our brand new stadium, and the fact that they'll be able to walk across the stage for the first time on our new field, I think is going to be quite an honor and something I'm excited to experience with them. There's a lot of activity going on this time of year in Lansing. The state House, the Senate, and the governor's office worked together from the get-go to build a budget. They have a self-imposed deadline of July 1. I'm skeptical that they will deliver on that because of the way things have gone in the last year, but I will say that all three have provided proposals which show an increase in our foundation allowance and our funding. One of the biggest challenges that I'm going to be providing you with more of an update on once I get some more definite numbers, but one of the biggest discrepancies between all of the plans are just how they're actually funded. So for example, one might not necessarily provide as much of an increase, but they're putting money into the budget to pay for the MIPSR's retirement fund. Or another one might say, we want to take away some of the CTE money, but we're going to give you money in other areas. So what's happening really is all three bodies are providing much more complicated measures for how things are going to be funded. And these things are often tied politically to different groups, of course. So it's going to become more and more challenging to kind of sift through and determine, what the net result is going to be on our budget. But Chris and I are sitting down to plan for that this week, and by June, of course, we will have a draft amendment or first look at next year's budget and what that's going to be. We have had an overwhelming amount of support for our summer program. Our building principals are working with their teachers this week on data meetings, and they're sitting down with their teams and they're discussing, where their students are at, and what's their current level of progress. And from there, they will actually have more students to go out and talk to and say, these particular children really would benefit from summer programming. Before those conversations have even commenced, we have nearly 400 students signed up for summer school. There'll be more on that later, but that's just a really positive sign. I'm going to be talking to you as a board for putting in front of you tonight for action is the possible approval of an employee hazard pay concept. This is a little bit new. I know we talked about it at Finance Committee a little bit, but the situation is that our district has done very well financially. We've been frugal, we've been efficient. Our teachers, our principals, our support staff have learned to be efficient with their resources and time. And as a result, we've been able to be in a position that I believe is very strong. We're going to be able to put money in the bank at the end of the year. And so I'm going to ask that the board consider tonight for action, and it will be at the end of the meeting, the possibility of approving hazard pay for our employees, that every employee would have the opportunity to receive a thank you bonus for their work this year, and that everybody would get the same amount, and it's a team effort. I'm requesting that I not be a part of that just because that's not the point. It's not, the purpose is not for me, but I believe our employees have worked extremely hard and they deserve a pat on the back. And so one of the things that that I'm going to present to you is a resolution to that effect at the end of the meeting today. An additional item of note, I know we're going to talk about our policies pretty extensively tonight, and I have quite a bit to share about some of the things that have been going on with quarantines in our health department. One additional note, though, for logistics' sake, the Genesee Intermediate School District has a very, very regulated process for adopting and approving and ultimately voting in their board members. Unfortunately, this board meeting falls at a time that falls outside of their parameters in terms of when certain resolutions have to occur. So tonight you'll be approving a representative to go and vote on the board's behalf during the biennial election. We have to take another resolution to actually determine who the board would like this representative to vote for at the meeting. Unfortunately, that resolution has to take place after May 17th, and that's actually in the statute. So what I'm going to be doing is reaching out to you. We do need to convene a special meeting. It can be simply for the purpose of deciding who we would like to support. It will be at a time that will be mutually beneficial for all of those that can attend. It's literally going to be a few item agenda just to basically get this done, but we do have to schedule a meeting sometime in the next couple weeks for that purpose. And so I'll be reaching out and talking with Sue and Joanne about getting something on the calendar with plenty of time for us to post the meeting and everything else. But I apologize, but we do need to get one more special meeting in place for that purpose. To wrap up, I'll just say that I'm extremely proud of our staff and our kids. This year has been an unbelievable year. The fact that we are here where we're at today, offering all the things that we offered our community and our families, everybody on this board, everybody in this school district should be proud of what we've been able to accomplish. I believe we've led the way, and I believe as a team, we've delivered our community an excellent education this year, considering the circumstances and the unbelievable requirements that we were under. I'm pleased to say that I believe brighter days are ahead. I think that in the fall, we're going to see much more of a return to class in whatever normal looks like now. But I'm feeling like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I just want to wish our staff and our students that have been through so much this year just a tremendous congratulations. And we have a little over 20 days left of school, and so I'm excited to see, other than our seniors, which have only got a couple days, but for the rest of our kids and our teachers, we're going to finish strong, and we're excited for this last home stretch. That is all for my report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Meinke. Anybody have questions for Ben? No? Okay. Ben, I would echo that. Congratulations to the seniors. I'm sure we'll say it again before the end of this meeting. Also to the staff, all of you, including you. Thank you so much for everything you've done for our students and for the community this year. And I'm not sure that we can ever thank you enough. So thank you. All right, going forward, we do have informational items, non-certified staff employment for your information. And we'll start with the policy committee or subcommittee reports. Brian?
Thank you. We met yesterday, Tuesday, May 11th, at 6:10 a.m. We were called to order, and we reviewed and discussed and made recommendations on the new truant policies. We reviewed and discussed continuing policy document checklist, which is, I don't know, did everybody get this, Joanne, tonight? Okay. So we've got the document here that.
Brian, I can pass those out. Those are, you're talking about the,
Yes.
this, I'll go ahead and just pass them around. Everybody did receive a clean copy of, this is the actual policy set,
Yeah.
but I will pass around the change documents. So
Okay.
they're kind of collated.
Thank you, Ben. We also reviewed the sample policy, number one. It was called to repeal and replace. And the bullying policy will be separated from the truant policies for individual first readings at the next school board. There was no public comment, and we were adjourned at 7:19 a.m. We will be going over these policies for recommendation for approval tonight. And I just wanted to comment that it's been a good, but it's been a difficult task to go through all of these. But it's been healthy, and I think it's going to be great for the school to be working with truant with policy. And these policies also, they're not, I mean, they're firm, but yet in the future, if we have issues with them, we still can modify and amend them as we go along into the school year. And that's all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you, Brian, very much. Because I wasn't able to be in person yesterday, I asked Jessica if she would take notes, and she has graciously offered to provide those to you.
Thank you, Carrie. We met on May 11th at 7 o'clock. The meeting was called to order at 7:23. Sorry, Rod, I'm gonna steal your thunder because I'm going through your whole agenda here, which was fantastic. Rod Netherton shared information regarding our summer school. It will be 6 weeks, 4 days a week from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for students July 12th through August 19th. K2 will be at Morrish, 3-5 will be at Deke, and 6th to 8th grade will be at Elms Elementary. Food services will be provided, which will be free breakfast and lunch. Transportation will be provided, and child care after school will be provided. Literacy intervention will take place, math intervention, and focus on STEM. As a matter of fact, it correlates to the age group. The K2 is going to have more of a focus on literacy intervention, 3-5 math intervention, and K8 STEM. We will have social work services available for the K2 program. We already have approximately 200 students signed up with 9 teachers hired, 12 SSPs, and we have postings for more additional teacher and substitute. The 3-5 have approximately 75 students signed up. We've hired 3 teachers. We've hired 7 SSPs and posted for additional teacher and substitutes. And then the 6th to 8th grade has approximately 75 students signed up. We've hired 4 teachers, 8 SSPs. We've posted for teachers and substitutes there. So that leaves, we've had additional students, because as of the other day, it was like 350, and now we're closer to 400. And so the other wonderful thing to me is that we have been able to hire all current employees that submitted an application were hired. We have had to hire a few staff outside the district, and we will be having, our staff will have data meetings happening in the next 2 weeks. So we anticipate that we will have more students coming into the program based on the data meetings of students that are really in need of being at summer school. We also discussed what Mr. Mike had already talked about a little bit, the hazard pay for employees this year. There were no public comments, and we adjourned at 7:46.
Any questions for Jessica?
I just had one comment. Rod, did that meet your expectation, 400 students for the summer program?
Yeah, I would say that blows our expectations out of the water, because I think that's going to be a low number, or we're going to be well over 500. So
Really?
I think the highest we ever have had in a summer program was about 120-ish, 125. So at least 4, maybe 5 times the amount that we've ever had. Probably due to multiple reasons. Obviously, this being a year where a lot of kids have missed school, but also offering up the transportation and daycare has been a great asset to be able to offer to families who couldn't otherwise get their children here.
I think it's going to be great for all these students that are applying themselves. Thanks, Rod.
You're welcome.
And let me now apologize for not turning my microphone on.
Any other questions for Jessica? Thanks, Jessica, I appreciate that. All right, Mike, you want to do finance?
Yes. Finance also met on Monday, beginning at 2:16 p.m. We discussed the bond project budget and architect services. We received a property tax value change report from Chris. And to give you a little explanation on that, on July 7th, the property value revenue from the 6 taxing units of the district decreased $13,283 from the original budget amounts. On April 30th, there was another decrease reported by the county of $149,215 for a total loss of $162,498. That's the bad news. The good news is that the state aid proposal A obligation made up that shortfall and more to the district with $218,358, and thus we saw an increase in tax revenue of $55,860. We also had discussion about the hazardous duty pay, which has been addressed by Ben and we'll be voting on. We discussed also the summer food program, which has been mentioned. Chris is working on the 21-22 budget. We received and discussed the budget proposals by the governor, the House, and the Senate. The check register has been reviewed and the following noted. General Fund, 232 checks in the amount of $316,000. Payroll, 24 checks, $3,479.05. Building and site, 2 checks, $18,782.31. Food service, 13 checks, $125,029.29. Student account funds, 26 checks, $22,376.70. Debt, 3 checks, $2,416,055.29. Bond, 8 checks, $1,239,265.68. Jessica Nave asked, and we had discussion about the salary and the position of the pending permanent athletic director, which we hope to be voting on in the first June meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for June 7th at 2 p.m. We adjourned at 3:23. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Chuck, building and site.
Building site.
Okay, that's right, okay. Building and site, we started at 3:24 p.m. Present was Mike Ahern, Jessica Levine, Chris Gray, Ben, Rod Hetherington, RC, and myself. The agenda items were the following: athletic concessions. Health inspection was completed along with the mechanical inspectors that passed, and the concession stands was officially opened, I believe, on April 22nd, according to RC. Batting cage has been installed. This is from 2019. The baseball athletic program paid for it, but due to COVID, it was delayed, and it was installed this year, and it's up and running, and is next to the varsity field, if anybody would like to go look at it. A lift was bought, a tow-behind lift. The maintenance department said they needed a tow-behind lift. They purchased it. It was $15,500. It was a used unit. They had 242 hours on it. It was considerably cheaper than a new unit. And Ben and RC decided to buy this because they'd been renting several times a lift, which the cost was approximately that much for the year. The weight trim property line is being done. The survey is being done for the Elms Elementary Road School that needs a fence and a gate, along with behind the administration building that needs a fence. We've decided to go with a sealed bid on that once it's all done and do it as one unit, I believe. The district landscaping plan, Ben has decided, along with RC and discussion at the last building committee, that should be more detailed. So they hired Agriscape Landscaping at $350 per building to do a conceptual CAD drawing for all the buildings so they all look the same. The elementary is going to be done with one, and the admin building would be $500. So it's $350 for all the elementaries, $500 for the admin. And these will be submitted, and then it will be a closed bid as one unit for all these buildings. And then the middle school and the high school will be done at a later date as soon as the buildings are completed with the architectural stuff that needs to be done to them. Siren walk-in cooler, the cooler will be installed soon. Waiting on some concrete bids, and the bids were anywhere from $12,000 to $35,000. That does not include the electrical bids. And then the unit can be installed on the concrete with the electrical hooked up. This will come out of food services. This will probably be anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 total. Quonset huts are needed for additional storage for RC. The bids will be sought and submitted to the board for full review. After first going to the building committee, the mulch for playgrounds was installed or being installed for all the playgrounds, and the budgetary results Items were auctioned off, and the net total for the district was $5,500. Bidgery charged approximately $1,700. There are some items left in the Mary Crapel building, but we'll try to sell those when the middle school and high school items are put into the Mary Crapel there. There was no public comment. We adjourned at approximately 3:53 p.m.
Any questions for Chuck? Okay, thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it. All right, moving on. We have several board discussion items, beginning with the elementary update part 2.
So we had previously invited Principal Preer and Principal Ashbrook out to talk a little bit about how the elementary schools have been running and operating this year. Obviously, you know, it was a new format. We've committed to continue to having updates for the board. And so this year, or this meeting, later in the year, so several months later, we're asking Principal Wildy and Principal Simonson, to provide us with an update on how things have been going in their buildings. So they're the other two principals at the elementary level. So thank you both for being here, and Travis has a microphone for you, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting us, and we're very honored to be here and follow up on what our colleagues previously presented to the board and further update you on our elementary model and our reconfiguration that we've undergone in the past year.
So we've got a couple of benefits that we've kind of tried to bring out here, and we'll go through a few of the details. A lot of these are still being teased out and will probably change going into next year as all of the students come back in. And so it's been a learning year, but one of the big benefits that we see going into this is a larger grade level team at each building, no matter what the grade is. So having more teachers there to collaborate with each other at the grade level, not only for creating more even classes, but to talk with one another about important ways of dealing with kids and curriculum delivery. So grade level on the whole has been really nice and even for us at Elms Road, and I know talking with the younger grades too. So social emotional needs have been easier to deal with as well, because we have the same types of needs at the different age levels. We're not catering to the vast array of as many students. So that's been a little easier to deal with as well.
So the big advantage that we've reaped from our reconfiguration is expanding on and extending our professional learning communities. So we've always had professional learning communities, but now, as Dave pointed out, they're much larger, and with more bodies together, you have more experience and more strengths, and we have so much talent in our district, and our staff are very hardworking, but also very talented, and as they share that with one another, it just, the growth we're starting to see is exponential. So we're really excited. So as a professional learning community, these are the 4 things, and you'll see this kind of outlines our presentation. We look at what do we want all students to know and be able to do. So we really have to hone that in. How will we know if they learn it? How will we respond when sometimes they don't learn it right away? And how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient?
So working on that idea of PLCs or professional learning communities, one of the things that we started last year, even before we went to the configuration of K2 and 3-5, but working on our curriculum as a district so that there's continuity from grade level to grade level and then continuity from classroom to classroom at each grade level. That has really taken shape a lot easier with bringing all the grade levels a little closer together. So at our building, we're working on those pacing guides right now so that each grade level in each 5th grade class or in each 4th grade class or in each 3rd grade class, they're all staying on track with each other, and that's a goal moving into next year. It was really hard to say that as a district in previous years that every 5th grade class was doing approximately the same thing just because there were so many buildings. and we didn't all talk. And so we're seeing that become a goal for us, and it's attainable a lot easier now by consolidating. So we're looking for, in future years, uniformity from class to class and building to building, and it's a little easier now when we're talking just, Gaines, Deacon, Elms are the 3-5 buildings. It's easier to talk together. There are, fewer sets of people that, need to decide on certain goals and things, so.
All right, so as we work together in our groups, as Ben talked about earlier, we do collect data, and that happens all year long, but especially fall, winter, spring, and we just finished up our spring data collection. Our grade level teams are in the process of holding their data meetings right now, and we are looking at our data both to determine our celebrations and what the growth we've managed to achieve and accomplish with our students this year, and then action plans on next steps and how do we keep forward progress. So it becomes this continuous cycle of improvement. And while this has always gone on in our district for so many years I can't even count, it is just that much better now and deeper and easier as we've brought these grade levels together. Oh, yes, sorry. So how do we respond when students have not learned yet? And when I say yet, because we get them there, it just sometimes takes some students longer. So we have really come together in our data meetings to look at gaps. And with the COVID pandemic, we certainly had gaps that were created during virtual learning times and outages and kids missing for various reasons. So we have worked really hard to identify where those gaps exist and help to close them with specific interventions. And we've had to adjust our curriculum and our pacing guides because this is not a typical year. And next year will not be a typical year. So it's going to take us a few cycles. But again, we look at where kids are at and how do we grow them along that continuum towards where they are headed. We've done that specifically at Cyrene as an example. We looked at math this year. And I'm very proud to say, in just like 8 weeks between winter and spring, really targeting in, we've managed to see a lot of growth and a lot of gaps closing for our little ones in their number sense and their math accomplishments.
So wrapping up, the larger grade level teams has been one of the biggest benefits that we've seen. And so we're looking at that as being kind of our structure moving forward, the ability to grow together. My teams at Elms the last couple of weeks since spring break have been working on developing strong pacing guides for the first 9 weeks to start next year, so we're all on the same page. Once those are developed, we're gonna go into summer with those developed. Once those are developed, when we come back in the fall, we're going to be looking to collect data on the students where they come in because we know that everybody's going to have some needs. And so the district is focusing on SEL, and obviously we're going to have that be our two main focuses, finding out where kids are at and what we can do to help them move forward. So I've talked to my staff about, speeding up out of the curve, so to speak. The hope is that we can catch kids where they're at and move on. The creation of a slightly more advanced track for kids that are ready to go, we want to be able to do that. And so at each grade level, we're going to be looking to collect that data, and if kids need a little more advancement, we're going to be able to provide that at each grade level. And then conversely, the lower, the needs that we're seeing that kids aren't quite at grade level or aren't where they need to be, we're going to be able to provide that too. We're going to have teachers that are set, and we're going to break out times mainly at math and reading to start, but also at science and social studies as we get going, to really meet the needs of diverse learners in a better way than we normally could with just 2 or 3 teachers at each grade level. The picture up there is, I think, the picture of your math groups, right?
Yeah. At Cyrene, we have some first graders that are working on second grade math concepts. So once or twice a week, they go into our STEM lab with our STEM lab coordinator, and they have opportunities to really advance. And we're really excited about that because in the past, we didn't necessarily have the capacity to expand and extend learning like that. And we just want to grow that as a district all across the grades.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. And unless, did you have more?
Oh, I was just going to say, with our transition, we've always done 5th to middle school, and we've done quite a bit working with the middle school to prepare those students and help them transition. We want to assure everyone we have good plans. Our upper L principals are going to come to the lower L buildings and talk with our 2nd grade students and help orient them to the upper elementary buildings and really make that transition a smooth one. Our 2nd and 3rd grade teachers are going to get a little time to meet during our PD day in June so they can work on that transition planning to make that a smooth transition since they're not, 2nd and 3rd grade teachers aren't normally in the same building. And then this is new this year, we want to have our preschool folks at Little Dragons meet with our kindergarten teachers. Again, all the transitions from pre-K on up, we want to make sure those transitions are nice and smooth.
Was I a slide ahead? I apologize.
Yes, that's okay.
Well, I kind of already talked about this. So the curriculum alignment piece is kind of the big thing for our upper elementary model moving forward. We're working on our SEL and building those stronger relationships. So the curriculum alignment, though, it's right in line with what we had started. We've got something called learning progressions that we're developing as a staff, and that's district-wide. And those have kind of sat on the shelf to a degree with COVID being what it is. And so we've worked the last couple of months at Elms to kind of dust those off, say, this is what's to come. And so aligning from kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade and knowing that we're connecting at the middle school is kind of the goal with advanced and remedial opportunities for the kids. So that's our goal moving into next year, all while providing the SEL. So.
Yeah, that social emotional piece, the relationships, all of us principals are meeting with our staff and talking and planning for the fall about how that has to be the foundation on which we build everything else. So we've talked a lot tonight about academics, but we know that the relationship piece comes first. And so in the fall, we will definitely be targeting that at our specific levels, which again is made easier because we can be very age and developmentally appropriate for our students. And that concludes our presentation. So thank you so much for your support. It has been so positive. The 4 elementary principals have really come together this year. As a principal in this district for many, many years, I can say I've always felt a little bit like I'm on an island and doing my own thing, not for fault of anything, but that's just the way things worked. And Dave, Alice, Katie, and I are in communication daily. We Zoom, we talk, we have created consistency across the district for our K-5 students and staff. So I think that's, a big plus to this model. And it's really helped us grow as administrators as well.
So I'm going to put you both on the spot. So sorry about that. I'm interested to know if the 4 of you obviously had a vision of what this instructional model would look like, right? I'm interested with all of the craziness from this year and all of the things that you couldn't do because of cohorting students or not being able to use recess and all of these other different protocols that we're under. What are some things that maybe you couldn't do this year that you would envision unrolling next year in the fall?
So you mean given that we could go back to normal?
Whatever semblance that might be, right?
Yeah, so I am looking to, really work on our young ones. Alice and I, we're really focused on knowing that they come in and need so much support in their social skills. Like they need to play games and learn how to take turns and get along and all these things that, I think in the past we all just kind of assumed kids knew coming in, and they don't. So we're really going to focus in on training our support staff and building in opportunities at the recess time and at lunchtime and that sort of thing to support those social skills and that social emotional growth piece, and throughout their day too. But I'm really looking forward to being able to bring them together again in a little bit larger groups and a little bit larger setting, and let them play, a little bit more than they've been able to this year, quite frankly. They've had a lot of restrictions on them.
I would add to that just the family piece. A lot of any negative feedback I've heard of the configuration has been more the disconnect, and not intentional on our part, but we can't hold family events where families from the younger elementary can come in. I mean, we haven't had any events in the school, and so I'm looking forward to those events that we used to have regularly, where we can have the second and first grade and kindergarten siblings come up and see older brother and sisters projects and things like that, and see the upper L school, and where we can have our family events down at the lower elementary and things like that. So we've got a lot of things to share, a lot of the clubs and activities that we typically have done that maybe the other building, Moorish, hadn't done, or items that Moorish had done that were extracurricular that they have suggested bringing to Elms that are just not COVID-friendly activities. A lot of great ideas out there waiting to be had at Elms now. So I think that's probably like that across the scope there. So there's been a lot of great things thrown around in terms of the extras that kids have just not been able to take part of. So we're looking forward to speeding up on that too.
And we just can't wait to get our community volunteers back in the buildings. They have been chomping at the bit, and we just are waiting to the day when this board says we can throw our doors open and welcome them back in our classrooms, because they are just so, so valuable to us and to our students. So those are a few of the things that we're really looking forward to.
Yeah, so just basically from the health department, right? Right now with these, we're under these continuity of learning plans, and those basic suggested protocols are that, you're not having outside, visitors in the schools. And so that's what I think they're referring to this year has been a real challenge. And so our hope is that as we've got a little over 20 days of school left, but as we roll our fall planning out, I think everybody's really hoping that we're going to be able to get back to a place where we can have parents and volunteers and guest readers and things like that back in the building.
Any other questions for David Michelle?
I have a question and a comment. Number one, thank you for being here. Thanks for the presentation. And I really appreciate what you said. And I'm very thrilled to hear that the four of you talk every day. Because one of the things when we made this change, sometimes because there are so many different elementaries, it can be a little bit of a competition. Yeah, I had my kids come up through one of the elementary schools, and so we're one community, and to be able to come together and have that cohesiveness, it just delights me. And I am curious to know, you made a comment about it, and you did just touch on it. How well are we partnering with our parents? You made a comment about that, I know, because so many of the kids have been online. I think in the presentation it was a part in what you learned, or because of Zoom partnering with parents. Are you finding a good interaction and partnership with parents?
I think, what this year has brought us to the positive is being able to, meet students and parents in their homes through our Zooms and our virtual meetings and that sort of thing. It's really helped us get a broader understanding of our community and connect with them and get to know families, and not just students, but their whole family unit, right? And that's been actually a positive of all of that. And we just really look forward to the day when, like I said, we can have the classroom parties and pack, like elementaries, when you have a classroom party, the walls, the table, every square inch of space in that classroom is packed with your parents and your grandparents and your folks that want to come and be a part of that. So we've done a little bit, like I know all the buildings are doing some sort of version of a muffins with mom or donuts with dad or a goodies with grown-ups kind of idea, and we're just doing it outside and a little more space to social distance and that sort of thing. So we are trying to connect with our families, but I do, again, look forward to, hopefully a little more ability to gather indoors in the school and let families come in and be part of what we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I would just say, to add to that, I know that we haven't had a ton of parents complaining that they can't be a part because they understand that they can't be a part. I have had a few parents, though, say, I feel like I don't know everybody up there, and they don't. I mean, they've never met their child's teacher like face-to-face in a meeting, and it's always been on a screen or through a phone call or whatever. And so it's forced us to make sure we're reaching out in other ways, but we need that face-to-face. We need those opportunities to have an evening, open house, a welcome video is just not the same. And so we want that again, and I think the parents want that again, and we're ready, so.
Carrie, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this on? Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. I actually have a question, a little bit on the spot, but are there gaps that you see or support or resources going through this model? And obviously, with the whole pandemic, it's obviously put some things, you don't have the resources that you necessarily would have had before, but have you been able to identify anything that we as a board may need to consider in this new model that you need as additional resource moving forward?
So we've actually started a lot of those discussions, and I know Ben asked administrators to think about that going into next year with some grant funding and some different funding sources that we have and we need to spend in certain ways to help support our work. So we've been having discussions, one of those being along the lines of the math supports and maybe some math recovery or some sort of intervention materials, math games, that sort of resource to help strengthen our kids in their math concepts. We've put a lot of money and training into literacy over the years in our elementaries, and our literacy interventions and resources and materials and things are top notch. And I think it'd be nice to mirror that in the math as well.
Thank you for that feedback.
I have nothing to add. That was pretty well done.
Okay, you spoke a lot about the social emotional components. Do you feel you have enough resources and support in that area?
We have quite a bit. We have a program called Second Step, which teaches a lot of those social skills, problem solving, empathy for kids, those kinds of things. We have the Positivity Project, and that is amazing for what it does to expand kids in their character and understanding that other people matter type concept of being empathetic towards others. And we are exploring a resource, and Mr. Heatherton actually brought that to the admin team and introduced us. We saw like a presentation about it, and we're looking at maybe moving forward on purchasing a system, a tech system, an app that would help support staff and students in our social emotional teaching and learning.
And I think for us, you can always use better training, better, I would say, instincts from all your people that are dealing with kids. We want them to operate well and be able to have the instincts. I want the best people working with kids. And so for us, that's a call to train our people that we do have so that we are able to meet the needs of kids. But kids are coming to us with a lot of great needs. And so we're always on the lookout for good resources that are going to help, but I think nothing is better than training our people well and being able to send them to trainings that will equip them with the skills to deal with those high needs kids. So we'll keep looking for that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Michelle, for your time, your efforts, your leadership. And this is really exciting information to hear back. I was hoping to hear this, and you've absolutely filled my needs tonight. I am happy that you're using data to drive a lot of what you're doing, but I'm also happy that you're using a common sense approach and looking at children's ability to play and interact and develop socially. And so we look forward to hearing from you again. I'm sure that Ben will have you back.
If I could add one last thing,
Sure.
I really would like to thank the families that we deal with, because really we've had a wonderful experience in the transition. It's been difficult for everybody, and so our Swartz Creek families have really answered the call with that. We've had very, very good success in dealing with our families throughout all this, and they've been very understanding. So,
Thank you for saying that. And I do have a question as a follow-up. Does that app that you were talking about, would that be available for parents to use as well for their social emotional needs?
I believe it does have like a family component
Okay.
and all of that. I'm just learning about it myself, so
That's great.
I don't know enough to really speak.
A full-service district. I love it. So thank you again. Go ahead.
The app would track all of the behavior interactions between teacher and child all day. So at any point, a parent could log on to the app and see all of the different interactions that were going on and things that have been logged in. So yeah, it would create an instant kind of picture of the day for the parent.
Good. That's amazing. Well, thank you both. You may stay if you'd like, or you're welcome to go as well. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Extended continuity of learning plan discussion number one.
Well, we do this every month, but I am passing around, kind of collated them. These are the data snapshots for the county. So I'll get into the metrics just a little bit. A month ago, when we talked, Genesee County was really spiking in terms of our numbers. We had a lot of kids in quarantine. We had a lot of cases. Genesee County as a whole was definitely on the rise. We've seen a sharp decline in cases and also positivity rate. My recommendation in terms of our instructional model is to continue with our model. We have, a little over 20 days of school left, that we would continue and stay the course. Our staff and our kids and our families are anticipating that. So that is certainly my recommendation for you tonight. However, I do want to shift gears a little bit. There have been some developments over the last week. Consistently, one of the things that has been a challenge for our principals as well as for our families and certainly our students has been quarantines. So what we have seen is a tremendous spike in issues, particularly for our secondary students. When we see one student that gets a positive case of COVID, they may go and sit next to or eat lunch next to or walk next to a number of kids, and you might have 50 students that have to quarantine by health order in that case. Unfortunately, those students are out for 14 days and they're missing their face-to-face instruction. We got a study and a discussion this morning with superintendents across the state. What we're finding is that of the cases that are out there, when someone is quarantined, only 4% of the students that are quarantined ever come up with symptoms or ever come up with an actual case of COVID. So that has prompted a big discussion across the state. There was the state health department essentially said that they are shifting the enforcement of quarantines, obviously to locals, which they had done originally. But essentially what's been done at this point is that local health departments are making individual countywide decisions on what they're going to do as it relates to student quarantines. We had a conversation with the health department today. We met as superintendents. So my recommendation for you tonight is that we change our quarantine policy and we move towards the recommendation from the Genesee County Health Department The Genesee County Health Department is recommending we move our quarantine day total time from 14 days down to 10, which helps a little bit. But I think the biggest thing, and this is my biggest sense of joy in terms of what they decided to do, is that they have decided to move the social distancing from 6 foot to 3 foot. That's a game changer in terms of quarantining students because we can reasonably keep kids 3 feet apart. And with that being said, I believe, in talking especially with our secondary principals, we're going to be able to quarantine a whole lot fewer students and get through this year. And hopefully, following suit of some other parts of the state as these cases go down, where we may be not quarantining anyone at all come the fall. So this will represent a change to our current plan. Currently, we're using 6 feet in our plan, and we are quarantining for 14 days. That was based on the old health department order. Their new recommendation and guidance is that we need to follow a 10-foot and 3-foot, or 10-day and 3-foot guideline, which will significantly reduce the number of quarantines. And I think if we can use that to get through the rest of the year, we'll see fewer kids out of school these last 20-some days. So that's my recommendation. I believe that will be something that will be a music to a lot of our parents' ears. You know, I think of some of our parents who have had their children quarantined multiple times. Assuming that you approve our continuity of learning plan with that adjustment tonight, that can take place and take effect immediately.
Ben, did they mention what the positivity rate would have to be for them to either reduce the number of days or eliminate the quarantine recommendation?
They have not. They've talked, there's been a lot of discussion about masks. They have this number of 70% of the population being vaccinated would be the time where masks could no longer be required. There's some semblance of hope that they have that number could be achieved this summer, which would mean that in the fall we could start school and not have to worry about masks. That is something that we don't know yet. We have to wait and see. Certainly we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to be safe and follow all of the requirements. But I think, what's happening now is a larger discussion across the state about, now that we have more data and we know more about this virus. So I think taking a careful, cautious, and balanced approach is important, but they have not given a specific target in terms of a percentage that they're going to use as a dictate. I will say that that not every county in the state is coming to the same conclusion. Talking with our health department director just today, all of the health department executives from across the state have been on several calls over the last few days, and there's not unanimous decisions that are being made. And part of that is because there's different case rates across the state and in different counties. So we were thankful for them taking kind of a balanced approach, and I think that the 3 foot and the 10 days will help our principals, our parents, our students, hopefully stay, safe, but also, be reasonable. And looking at that 4% number, that's a small percentage of kids that actually do contract the virus because a lot of what we're doing at school is safe, and we have a lot of precautions and procedures in place to protect our kids.
Any other questions for Ben? Go ahead, Alicia.
Is there a provision for those that are fully vaccinated and asymptomatic?
The provision for kids that are fully vaccinated is that they don't have to quarantine. So if there's a student who's 14 days post their second vaccination, they do not have to quarantine. The health department has rolled out additional literature. They're going to be sending out that any students that are 12 and up can receive the vaccination at this point. And so that will also cut down on quarantines as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're fully vaxxed, do they have to wear a mask still?
Technically, that is the guidance, yes, at this time.
Okay. One more question. Is there any, maybe Alicia knows because she's from the medical field, is there any reason for the 3-foot social distancing? I mean, you're talking an arm's length away, literally. Like me and Chuck right now are not more than 3 foot. He's probably 2 foot away from me. So if we're going from 6 foot down to 3 foot, which is almost nothing, at what point do we say you don't even have to social distance now? Because 3 foot is basically nothing.
Yeah, it's a great question. My kind of rationale, and was the rationale of several of the other superintendents, is, we see a lot of things in the field and try and advocate a certain way. I mean, we're looking at data too, right? We're looking at those things. But one of the things that we have said all along, and when you think about governmental immunity and, what might pierce that, you have to consider the fact that, am I a health expert, right? And I personally am not. And so from the beginning of this situation that we've been in, we've stated, and you've heard me state at the board table, we're following the direction from our health department. Now, and that's regardless of whether there's agreement, in those things. But I think to finish this school year and these continuity of learning plans, it would be a challenge, I would think, for me to recommend to you at least to go against what the health department's recommending. Now that being said, certainly that's just an opinion, and so I can't speak to the data on why 3 feet and how they came up with that number, but I certainly know that that's what their toolkit that's been updated, and that's what we got our briefing today on that. So, but it's certainly something I can continue to ask that question. And I think what you're seeing on the west side of the state, for example, some of those districts their local health departments have essentially said, you don't have to quarantine, we're not enforcing that at this point. And so that's different for them. And so when you talk to legal counsel, they'll say a district's risk liability, okay, is significantly lower, if not non-existent, for those districts because the health department has, as the health official, has given that guidance. So that's why tonight, as I'm recommending what our health department is doing, and we had a lengthy discussion today, it's because of the fact that I'm not aware of how or what metrics they use to come up with that number. I just know that that's the number they're guiding us to use. So I don't know if that answers your question. I can't fully tell you how they come up with it or when that day will come.
Okay.
Can I respond at all? Since you called me out, Jack.
Well, it's just, you're the health expert.
Well, I don't know that I'd call myself that. I will just say professionally and anecdotally, from my personal experience and professional experience. Why or how all depends on who you ask and what reference you utilize. It's a constantly changing and constantly getting more information situation over the last year plus that we've been dealing with this. I think the medium or the environment or the group of people, either the decision makers or the people affected, they all have different guidance. So how it's being addressed in a school setting versus how it's being addressed in a business setting versus how it's being addressed in a healthcare setting. Every guidance is a little bit different and it literally changes on a daily basis. I've had days where midday it has changed. The 3-foot rule actually in some other sectors was out months ago. I think overall, having a lot of experience within Genesee County, but then seeing other counties, our county is very conservative. And they do take an approach to try to protect as many community members as possible. We also have to keep in mind, we have a very urban area because the county covers a lot of different types of living conditions as well as, settings in schools and all of that. So they have to make the guidance that's best for an extremely large county also. But I think to what Ben spoke to, as well as, collectively all the superintendents, is that what they are seeing is that truly, if you look at the data, that transmission rate when masked and even within a 6 feet really isn't showing that it's transmitting as rapidly as they would have anticipated. So they're able to start to pull back. Why it took that long or why now versus earlier, there's no rhyme or reason, truly. I mean, it constantly changes. But at a 4% rate, I think we're totally safe with pulling back. And again, just following those guidelines and recommendations from the health department. Again, it can change at any point in time, but we have to use our local experts, and those experts don't even necessarily agree with the experts in the county next to them or whatever that is. Anyway, I don't know if that answered it either, but that's basically what I've seen, is that it's always changing and it just depends on who you ask.
All right.
So Ben, in the spirit of planning for going forward, and we all hope that we are over the spikes and by fall that we will have development of herd immunity, is there an opportunity to educate families on the availability of vaccine for their child and to encourage them to consider it just as an option? Because as we're working towards children and teachers and other staff not having to wear masks, that may be a step in the right direction. Additionally, would any districts consider, this one included, asking families to provide a vaccine card for the child on file so that if they are subject to a quarantine, that they can just look to see if they've been vaccinated? And I'm anticipating, as the mother of someone who's getting married in Denver in July, and they just issued, if your event has 80% of people who've been vaccinated and you can prove that you don't have to social distance or you don't have to wear masks, which is very interesting. I mean, this was very progressive. But is there any discussion about that type of proactive approach to getting information? You're not mandating, it's voluntary, but it would serve to prevent people from being quarantined because we already have that information on file.
Yeah, at this time, there haven't been any substantive conversations along that. I do think that certainly we can share the information about vaccinations because that's being given to us to put out. I do think, though, one of the challenges is that some parents would give that freely, and some are a little bit more guarded about those medical documents that are not required. But one of the things that we do know is that if, for example, a student at the high school were to be quarantined and the call goes out, the parent simply can call, provide that document, and then that student doesn't have to quarantine. So we have already had that happening, and we're seeing that, they just come back to school the next day.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I would add as well that to eliminate the liability or that piece on the school district is that any vaccine provider in the state of Michigan is required to report that to the state. So MICR, which is the Michigan something immunization registry. So I'm like, I don't know what the C stands for, but anyway, that's in there, and to challenge that, any user could always look that up, but as well the health department will look that up to be able to disclude, I don't know if that's a word, somebody from quarantine if they are fully vaccinated. So that information is also available. I think it would be more readily available and easier to obtain necessarily than having the parents or the children provide that, but.
And I have a suggestion. Maybe we just put it out to the parents that voluntarily, if you'd like, you can submit that information to the district.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you won't be stepping on the right or the left toes. And I think that would probably be and you know me, I'm not politically correct, but I think that would be the fair thing to do, is just to put a memo out to the parents saying that if you want, you're more than welcome to give us this information. We'll have it on file. It'll stay as, confidential as we can, and it's only for purposes of quarantine. That way, instead of booting 12 kids tomorrow, we see that 11 of them have the quarantine cards, and that it's been over the 14-day thing, and then we know just to eliminate those kids and tell the one boy or girl that, hey, listen, you have to leave because of the 10 days, and explain it to the parent. And then, as Alicia said, they can always do it, because I don't want to get involved in any liability for the district, starting to mess around with people's medical records. There is a form there that the state has, that registry. I don't know what it's officially called, as Alicia said, but I think that would be the best move for the district to keep us out of harm's way and protect our children at the same time. And that way the parent can do it or not, because some parents aren't going to want to give up that information, some will. So I think voluntarily doing it. And I have a couple other follow-up questions, though, while we're discussing this thing, so if anybody else has anything.
Well, I'd agree with Chuck here. I don't think, I don't think it's our job to be policing that kind of thing. I don't think, your medical business, that's your business. It's not ours. And so I do believe Chuck's right here when he says that should be a voluntary thing. Yeah, I think spot on. It needs to be voluntary at most, if we even, make it that.
There are still clearly state-required and district-required immunizations that have to be provided. So that information's already available. This would just be not a state and not a district-required one. So we already obtain health information, just to keep that in mind.
And that way, but we put it on file so we don't have to jump through the hoops to get it.
Right.
Now, my follow-up question was, I was waiting for everybody to get done if I can do it. You said that 4% of the children are quarantined. I think a more important number for our parents are, of that 4% that have been quarantined, how many fatalities have we had of that 4%? Does anybody have that number?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that pretty
Good.
easily.
I
So just to clarify, we've quarantined a lot of students.
Right.
So
Well,
what?
4% test positive of the ones that were
4% test positive of the kids that have been quarantined. That's across the state.
How many fatalities do we have?
I don't know the statewide numbers, but I certainly can tell you that in Swartz Creek, the number is 0.
0. What about for our whole county? I've asked some people.
I believe the number is 0.
Yeah,
for Genesee.
so I think we're pretty safe. I just wanted to reassure, I know there's not a lot here public, but somebody may be watching it online, that of the 4%, it's been 0, I think, in Genesee County, and near 0 in the whole state, unless somebody's had an underlying medical condition. I think that would make the parents feel a little bit more safer if we decide not to go through and do the 10, what's the number? I get them confused. 310?
Yeah, 10 days and 3 foot.
Yeah, 3 foot, yeah, so, okay, good. I think that would help ease some of their minds if we put those statistical data out for them too. That's all I had with that data.
Any other questions for Ben? Thank you, Ben. Thanks for watching out for our students and staff.
Actually, Carrie, to add on to your thing about can we get the information out there? I mean, I think it's publicly available, but I don't think we would be, personal opinion, but I don't think it would be wrong to have resource links available through our website or wherever else that basically parent-driven. It's our extended learning plan, exceptions to the quarantine, and then with that, especially if we're saying, if they're vaccinated, they are exempt, here's a link to find out where to get them. And that can just go directly to the health department, and there'll be, there's Vaccine Finder to be able to find out where those clinics are available.
Okay. All right, moving on. We have our Troon policy discussion.
All right, so as Brian mentioned earlier, we've spent a lot of hours in a lot of different meetings talking through. I think it's been a very good and healthy process to go through and actually go through all the policies and really kind of pour over them. We were in an implementation meeting with Troon Law Firm. lasted two meetings that lasted several hours apiece. We've had multiple meetings in addition to that as a committee, as a policy committee, going through the different options and choices. So the first page are the different options that were created based on those that are, up for option for the district. And then I'm very thankful to Sue and to Joanne. They put a ton of work in, and they have created this monster, which is a clean copy of the proposed policies. So obviously, there's a couple logistical things that I'll make you aware of. The plan for tonight is we're recommending adoption of the policies. It's not a final thing that we will, never revisit some of these. I know that there are a number of items where there wasn't 100% consensus. There were at least one or two people that may have disagreements on different ones. The goal is to, find consensus, which is what we did with the policy committee. However, there are several of these policies that I think several board members are going to want to go back into the policy meetings and take a further look at. So we know that exists, and I think that there might be even some discussion about that tonight, which is fine. But in terms of the process, there's a resolution in front of you that for consideration. And just so that you're aware, the resolution essentially first repeals the existing policy manual, okay, with the exception of policy 5517.01. And the reason for that is that we are statutorily required to maintain an anti-bullying policy. And you cannot adopt an anti-bullying policy until you've had at least a reading. So you need 2 board meetings to get through that.
What number was that, Ben?
The policy that we currently have is 5517.01.
Where's it at in here?
Okay, so now the new policy on bullying, which is the anti-bullying policy that we are not adopting tonight, but it is in this manual for your reference, is policy 5207, which is an anti-bullying policy. That is going to be the Troon anti-bullying policy. And what we will do is we're going to request that the repeal of our Neola policies and the adoption of these Troon policies with the exception of the anti-bullying policy. And then in the first board meeting in June, our next board meeting, we'll have a final reading on the anti-bullying policy, and we will repeal 5517.01, and we will replace it with the new anti-bullying policy at that time. So that's the logistics of how this is intended to go. And then obviously we will continue to have updates and more policy discussion on the various policies, where there wasn't 100% consensus. So I'm leaving it up to you if there are questions or further discussion.
So first, are there questions for Ben? Process, specific questions about the bullying policy, anything else?
I just would like to hear from the board members that objected to it, Carrie, just what some of the maybe short discussion or an overlay of what it was.
Objected to?
You said, Ben stated that some of the policy board had some discussion on it, and I kind of want to hear their comments on it. If they can make it. Yeah, I don't know if they, just if they don't want to, maybe they can email it to us so I know what they're.
So I think Ben was referencing the policies in general.
Oh, okay.
There were questions on some of them and a lot of discussion.
Okay. I thought it was specific just to that.
No.
I apologize then. I misunderstood.
By rule, we can't adopt the bullying policy tonight. They have to do a reading and then we can do it in June.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chuck, I probably wasn't clear enough on that.
I just thought that the board policy makers had some discussion on that specific item that was not.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm good. I misunderstood you then. Thank you.
No, that one is statutorily requires 2 reads. But what I will say, Chuck, to continue with my line of thinking there, we went through, however many hundred of these different options, and the board did have some disagreement at times. So for example, you might have, a policy on, whether or not American Sign Language should count for high school credit, right? And so you might have, one or two board members that say that it shouldn't and several others that did. So what we were trying to do is work to consensus so that the recommendation that's before you tonight is representing the consensus, but not necessarily that every single board member agrees with every single one.
Got it, that's, I thought there was some major, somebody had an objection to something.
And keep in mind, Chuck, if we adopt the new policies, the Troon policies, if we take out the Neola, put in, except for bullying, we have an opportunity going forward at our policy meetings to bring forth those individual policies to
Okay.
review and discuss again.
I'm good with it, thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense now.
Any other questions? Have we talked about it enough?
Yes.
I want to commend my fellow board members who spent very early days, 6 o'clock in the morning, looking at these, as well as their own personal time reviewing them and asking a lot of really, really good questions. So if there are no more questions, I believe we can move on to our board action items. We have several. Beginning with the reaffirmation of the continuity of learning plan. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Is that with the amended changes?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Support.
Brian and Mike, any comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the reaffirmation of Swartz Creek Community Schools Extended Continuity of Learning Plan as presented. Sue, I'm going to ask if you would do roll call, please.
Mike Ahern,
Yes.
Alicia Gardner,
Yes.
Jessica Lenave,
Yes.
is it Jack or John?
Either's fine.
Jack Thayer,
Yes.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey,
Yes.
Ryan Sapanic.
Yes.
All right, we have 7 yeses, correct? All right, motion passes. Next, we have the approval of delegate and alternate representatives for GISD 2021 biennial election. As Mr. Meinke mentioned, we are required to choose or help choose the next GISD board member. And then we are to identify someone who can serve as our delegate and, if available, an alternate. The meeting is on June 7th at 6 p.m., I believe, and it is in person. So I think, Jack, you had maybe volunteered to be our delegate?
I can do that, yes.
Yes, you can?
Yes.
Thank you. So Jack has expressed interest in being our delegate. Do we have an alternate?
I will add that happens to be senior honors night, just FYI. So unfortunately, I declined.
Okay.
And well, I would like to add, Jessica was very kind. She said she would do it. But being that her daughter is a senior, I would be gracious and glad to take over for her here so that she can honor her daughter at senior night.
Anybody else for an alternate? I don't think we're required to send an alternate, are we? But you're pretty sure you can go, Jack?
Maybe Brian?
I'll be an alternate.
Okay. All right, Brian.
As long as you're there 100% of the time.
That would have been a safe bet. I should have.
All right.
It was a safe bet.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve Jack and Brian as our delegate and alternate.
So moved.
Support.
Lisa and Jessica, the two senior moms. All right, be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve Jack Sayer as delegate and Brian Sapanic as alternate for our representative for the GISD 2021 biennial election as presented. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to the asbestos abatement.
Terry, I just want to qualify. We have 2 senior parents that bowed out. I'm a senior grandparent.
Oh, well, then you better hope Jack is reliable.
Hey, I'm young and healthy, Brian. There should be no problem there.
Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Going on to the asbestos abatement. Did you want to talk about that for a minute?
Just real briefly, We obviously, as a part of our bond projects, have asbestos abatement that has to be done. It has to be bid out. We had bids taken. This is a little bit older. We had bids taken back in March. This is for $217,873. This is coming from the bond proceeds, and this will be to abate the high school and the middle school, where construction will be commencing here very shortly.
How much is the total?
$217,873.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Brian and Jack. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve bid recommendation to HBC Specialized Contracting for asbestos abatement for the Swartz Creek Middle School for an amount of $67,897 and the high school for an amount of $149,976 for a total amount of both being $217,873 as presented. Any comments or questions? And Sue, once again, would you please do roll call?
Mike
Thank you.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alicia Gardner,
Yes.
Jessica LaNave,
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey,
Yes.
and Brian Sapanic.
Yes.
All right, we have 7 yeses. The motion passes. Thank you. And finally, we have the approval, not finally, but we have the approval of Swartz Creek Community Schools Troon policy adoption and Neola elimination. And you did receive with your packet that particular motion as it was presented, the long form. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Support.
Jack and Brian?
Yes.
Mike, you're right there. I just called on you. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves Swartz Creek Community Schools Troon policy adoption and Neola elimination as presented. Any comments or questions?
I do.
Yes, Brian.
I know a lot of hard work went into putting these packets together. I'm going to ask that we put a lot of time and energy into these resources. Is there a possibility we can have holes and these put in notebooks? These are no page numbers. If I dropped this on the ground, I would be forever trying to put this thing together.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest not doing that.
I'm going to suggest that we all start utilizing technology and not have to print them in the
Well,
first place.
Is this going to be our final?
Absolutely, no, absolutely, we can get some holes punched and we can get that for you. But one thing that I would like to add is that there's a digital component to this called Board Book, and they will house all of these policies so that the community and anyone that needs to reference our policies can clearly find them on our website. So after policies are implemented, we will then have Board Book come in, and they'll actually probably provide a training for any board members that would like. And there's the potential, if you're interested in it, helping for agenda management and, all of those types of things. So we'll have more to come on that, but yes, there will be more digital resources where you could even click it and then print it off if you needed that. But we can absolutely get it punched for you.
Yeah,
so that
since we
can
have
get
this,
better.
it'd be nice to have this in a codified.
That's a great idea.
And then, but the digital, I'll probably be using the digital format. It'd be so much easier.
Yeah.
Did you get that in writing?
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have one, Carrie.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll be honest, I haven't read the whole thing. Has anybody read the whole thing? You guys?
Yes.
Yes.
I haven't. read it,
Yes.
Several.
no. Okay.
You guys really have read all
Every
this double
word.
sided? Chuck, I tell you, it took us weeks.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
And
And we take more volunteers to the policy committee at any point in time.
I know, and I'm not saying that nobody did. I just hate voting on anything that I've read entirely. And I'll be honest, I read the copy that Joanne gave me several weeks ago. I haven't read this copy. And I just, I'll probably abstain, just because I haven't read it all. It's not because I'm against it. It's just because I haven't read it all, and I might feel a little uncomfortable voting on it. I know we can make changes at any time if the board agrees to it, and it's within the law. And so that's my only comment on it, with the exception of just give Brian a rubber band for now to put around papers, and that will get him by, hopefully. Give him two if he needs it. I'm sure we have some. Thank you.
Okay,
That one that big.
thank you. Sue, could you also do a roll call for this, please?
Mike Ahern,
Yes.
Alicia Gardner,
Yes.
Jessica LaNave,
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey,
Abstain.
abstain,
Till I read it.
Brian Sapanic,
Yes.
6 yeses, 1 abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And we will revisit the 5207 at our next meeting. Finally, we have the approval of the district employee compensation hazard pay. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Alicia and Brian?
It was not me.
Jessica, sorry, I did it again. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve the 2020-2021 District Employee Compensation Hazard Pay as was presented by Ben. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
I just want to make sure we're voting on the right thing here. Is this going to be the scaled version, or is this going to be the version where everybody's getting paid the same amount?
It is going to be up to a certain dollar figure in a total sum that we're looking at right now, but the resolution as it's written is that it's the same for everyone.
Okay.
Yep.
How many employees do we have?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer any given day. But it's
True.
between 450 and 500.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. How much is the total amount? Carrie read it off, and I know it's on the paper, but it should be read out loud. How much is the total amount?
It's an amount that is up to $375,000.
And where did this money come from?
General fund.
It's not coming from any federal grants?
It is not, and this is really about approving this in concept. The actual formalized appropriation of the funds would have to come through the budget adoption of the final amendment, which would be the last board meeting in June.
So they would be paid in the last paycheck before our fiscal year.
That's correct.
And you've answered how it's going to be distributed. And we're doing this because of COVID as a bonus?
Yes.
Is that the idea?
Okay.
Ooh, I will add one more thing. Now, Ben has said that he does not want to be included, and I've had discussion with a couple other board members that if we are going to do this for all of our employees, that it should include Ben. And now, he does not have to accept the money. That's fine by me, though I do believe it fair that if we are including all employees, that includes Ben in that.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Okay. It does not reference Ben. He only spoke to that. So I don't think we need to amend the resolution at this point. But thank you, Jack, for mentioning that. And I agree, you've done an amazing job as well.
Thank you very much.
It takes the captain. Okay, so with that, no other questions or comments. I would ask that we do roll call again, Sue. Please.
Brian Sapanic,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey,
No.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Jessica LaNave,
Yes.
Alicia Gardner,
Yes.
Mike Ahern.
Due to a conflict of interest, I abstain.
Thank you, Mike. And does that puts us in, I'm sorry,
5 and
was 5 and 2?
5, yes.
5, 1, 1.
5 and 1?
5,
Okay,
1,
thank
1.
you. All right, so the motion passes. Thank you. Finally, we're on to public comments. If anybody is here, I don't see anyone, but our wonderful technician. And going on to comments and questions from the board.
I would just like to say, I do believe last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you to all of our teachers in our district. Thank you so much for being amazing and wonderful. And I would like to thank the students who interviewed both Carrie, Germaine, and I at Elms for Elms Live, right? We had a wonderful time on Monday communicating and letting the kids know what our responsibilities and roles are here on the board and the effects that the board has on the community and the effect that the community has on the board and then the district. And I just wanted to publicly say, thank you, they're doing a great job.
They are, they're doing an amazing job, and they are certainly upcoming leaders in our society. They had some great questions for us, and one of my favorites was, what was your favorite book as a child? And it was really interesting to have that conversation, as well as what fictional character do you relate to and why? So give those things some thought tonight. Anybody else?
I've got one. Alicia, you first.
Well, thank you, Jack. As stated before, I am a senior mom. I would like to extend a lot of gratitude, and I think on behalf of other friends and family that I have as well, that the district, the parents, the teachers, the coaches, the staff, the community at large, I really do feel has gone above and beyond to provide just memories and opportunities for these kids. I want to acknowledge the class of 2020, who had a lot stripped from them at the end as well. The class of 2021 didn't have the greatest start to their senior year either, but any and all opportunities, district has really been creative and collaborative to make sure that they end their high school career with some great opportunities. So thank you. I'm excited. For those that don't know, there will be the senior clap out drive-through parade this Friday through town. So that's fun and exciting, and I think is a great thing that the class of 2020 developed and will now be a standing tradition for the district. So know that 2020 has established a legacy too that will continue. So just my thanks to everybody, but also give a hug and a clap to any senior that you know, and look forward to seeing you all on the field.
Thank you, Alicia.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to be careful with how I say this so that hopefully I don't get in trouble, nobody else gets in trouble here. I saw on Facebook in the community page here, there was a parent who was asking about masks, why we still require them and such. And as we talked about this kind of earlier when we were kind of going through the COVID restrictions and all that, but I do just want to mention this for anyone who didn't see my personal comment on it. I want to comment on this publicly, that we as a board cannot override the state government. It's not within our power to do such. So being that the state is requiring the masks, it is actually not us who can decide whether or not our students are wearing masks. That's not us yet. As soon as that does become within our jurisdiction, I'm sure we will have a discussion and a vote on it. I can almost guarantee that. If the state just simply says you don't have to wear masks, then I'm sure we'll have a discussion on it. So I just wanted to say to our parents who are concerned about the masks and their children and wearing them, that isn't our jurisdiction at the moment. So I do see the letters. I see the comments about it. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have the power to override the state. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jack.
I would add to that, Jack, as well, the quarantine situation as well.
Right,
So,
right.
It's really all of the protocols in place that you're absolutely right, and thank you for addressing that. That a lot of people, unfortunately, feel we have a whole lot more power than we really do. That that really our objective is to follow policy and guidance as it's provided to us. And a lot of things we unfortunately have to fall within legally, ethically, and statutorily. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, well, I'm going to congratulate the seniors. We all get to spend time with them at Honors Night and at commencement, both for the Virtual Learning Center and for the community. We are looking forward to that, celebrating the accomplishments of our seniors and their families. But I want you to know that we are also excited for you, for your futures. I know they're very bright. And so I also want to thank Dave Simonson and Michelle Wildy for coming here tonight and sharing their experience. And I guess that's it. Anything else, anybody?
Can I add, I don't know if this is the appropriate meeting, but a public thank you from the board as well for the participation in the information provided from Brendan Johnson as our student representative. He is also a senior and will be graduating here soon, so look forward to whomever may take those shoes, but he has definitely left a legacy for himself. Wish him nothing but the best, and those that don't know, he will be going to the University of Michigan as a very unique one of 20,000 applicants kind of thing, but 27 selected to the program. He is a shining star within our district as well, and a great representation for Swartz Creek. So a thank you to him. I'm sure he's busy studying because it's finals week for those seniors. But we do look forward to, whomever is able to fill those shoes moving forward.
Thanks, Alicia.
He really is.
Ben, do you know if he'll be able to join us in June?
I certainly do hope so.
Okay.
I'll be reaching out to him soon.
We'd all like to thank him in person if possible.
And if you didn't see it, he was the star of the Newsies musical as well. And I can't wait to see that kid on Broadway. It's pretty exciting.
He will be. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, okay, it's a tie. Mike and Alicia, any comments or questions? And I hold the gavel. So if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye? All right. Thanks, everybody, for